Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we unpack the secrets hidden within corporate filings. Today we're diving into Mallinckrodt's big move, a deal that could shake things up in the pharma world. So a quick recap, Mallinckrodt is doing a big merger, basically buying another company called Endo. This just happened on July 31st, 2025. They're paying for it with a mix of cash and their own stock, and it looks like they also got a pretty hefty new loan to help finance this whole operation. Let's talk about that loan first. It's a massive $1.35 billion from new credit facilities. This is a big deal because it means Mallinckrodt is taking on significant debt. A huge chunk of this $1.2 billion is a term loan that they've already borrowed. The rest is a revolving credit facility, which is like a credit card they can use for shorter term needs. This money is mainly going towards paying off old debts, including their existing Mallinckrodt credit agreement and some other notes, which is a pretty common practice after a big acquisition. They're also using some of this cash for the actual costs of the deal and for general company operations. Now, about that $1.2 billion term loan, it's not all due at once. It will be paid down bit by bit every 3 months. The payments start small, like 0.625% of the original amount for the first year. Then they gradually increase over time. By the time it's due in July 2030, they'll have paid off most of it, with a big chunk, the balance, due on that final date. Let's look at the cost of this borrowing. If they borrow at a base rate, they'll pay the base rate plus 6%, which is pretty high. If they go with the SOFR option, it's even more, the SOFR rate plus 7%. There's also a 0.25% fee on the unused part of that revolving credit line. This kind of borrowing cost is a serious commitment and a big factor in how profitable the company can be moving forward. Because they're taking out this new loan, they've also been busy closing out their old debts. On August 1st, 2025, they paid off around $385.5 million in old second out term loans and also redeemed their existing Mallinckrodt notes for about $477.02 nils. Second out term loans, and also repaid everything under their ABL facility. This means their old credit agreements are now terminated and the related security and guarantees are released. It's like cleaning the slate before the big merger. Now for the main event, the acquisition of Endo. On July 31st, 2025, the deal closed. The shareholders of Endo got about $1.31 now own a piece of Mallinckrodt. There's also a mention of cash paid instead of fractional shares, which is common to avoid issuing tiny amounts of stock. Beyond the basic shares, they also dealt with special types of stock awards for employees called restricted stock units, or RSUs. For those tied to just time, they were converted into Mallinckrodt stock units. For those tied to performance, they were also converted assuming performance goals were met at a target level. There were also cash awards for long-term performance, which were also assumed by Mallinckrodt. This ensures that employees' existing incentives are carried over, which is important for retaining talent during a merger. A really interesting detail here is what happens to these converted awards if an employee leaves. If a person is let go without cause or quits for good reason within 2 years of the merger, these awards become fully vested. This is a pretty standard golden parachute type of clause to protect employees in case of unexpected job loss after a merger. When big mergers happen, leadership changes are almost always part of the deal. In this filing, we see that 3 directors, Abbas Hussein, David Stetson, and Wesley Wheeler, have stepped down from Mallinckrodt's board. The good news is they resigned without any major disagreements, which is always a positive sign. But here's the exciting bit. New directors are coming on board. The deal requires the board to have 9 directors. 4 are from the old Mallinckrodt board, 4 are from the Endo board, and 1 was chosen jointly. We see Paul Efron, Scott Hirsch, Sophia Langlois, and Mark Yoskowitz appointed as the Endo directors. Paul Efron is also taking on the role of chair of the board. Scott Hirsch, who was interim CEO at Endo, will also serve on the board and has also signed a consulting agreement with the company. I'll touch more on that later. Sophia is appointed as the Endo directors. Paul Efron is also taking on the role of chair of the board. Scott Hirsch, who was interim CEO at Endo, will also serve on the board and has also signed a consulting agreement with the company. I'll touch more on that later. Sophians and Bank of Years Paul Efron is also taking on the role of chair of the board. Scott Hirschron is also taking on the role of chair of the board. Scott Hirschron, who was interim CEO at Endo, will also serve on the board and has also signed a consulting agreement with the company. Then there's Leslie Donato, who's been appointed as the jointly selected director. She has a strong background in strategy from companies like Cencora and Bayer and experience on other boards including Virtua Health System. This new board composition brings a mix of existing knowledge and fresh perspectives, which will be crucial as they integrate the two companies. The committees of the board have also been reconfigured. Sophia Langlois is now the chair of the Audit Committee, which is a key role in overseeing financial reporting. Paul Efron and Mark Yoskowitz are on the Human Resources and Compensation Committee, and Katina Doughton, Leslie Donato, and Mark Yoskowitz are on Human Resources and Compensation Committee. Now, about that Scott Hirsch consulting agreement, he's no longer the interim CEO of Endo, but will be a senior advisor to Mallinckrodt for a transition period. He's getting paid a hefty $750,000 a month during this time, and after that he'll continue as a consultant for another 6 months, earning another $9 million for that gig. Plus Mallinckrodt is covering his health insurance for a year. This transition looks like it's designed to ensure a smooth handover and leverage his expertise during this critical integration phase. Mallinckrodt also issued a press release on August 1st, 2025, officially announcing the closing of the acquisition. They're also sharing some preliminary financial information under confidentiality agreements with potential lenders. This is pretty standard practice to keep everyone informed, especially those who might provide future financing. Something else that popped up is an amended and restated registration rights agreement. This agreement is set to become effective when Mallinckrodt has an IPO, which means when they first offer their shares to the public through an initial public offering or a direct listing on a stock exchange. This agreement basically outlines the rights of certain shareholders to have their shares registered so they can be sold in the public market. Lastly, the filing notes that they will be providing more detailed financial statements for the acquired business later. This is pretty normal for these types of reports as it takes time to compile and verify all the necessary financial data after a merger. So what's my take on all this? Mallinckrodt is making a bold move by acquiring Endo. The $1.25 billion credit facility shows they're willing to take on significant debt to grow, but that also comes with a direct cost in terms of interest payments. The leadership shakeup and new board appointments suggest they're trying to align the company's direction with the merger's goals. The consulting agreement with Scott Hirsch highlights the importance of retaining. The leadership shakeup and new board appointments suggest they're trying to align the company's direction with the merger's goals. The consulting agreement with Scott Hirsch highlights the importance of retaining key talent and knowledge during these transitions, albeit at a significant cost. The biggest strength here is the potential for synergies and market expansion that come from combining the two companies. However, the increased debt is a major risk and they'll need to execute flawlessly on integrating Endo and managing their finances. We'll be watching closely to see if they can successfully navigate this new, larger landscape and if those hefty borrowing costs can be managed effectively. Alright, that's our breakdown of Mallinckrodt's latest filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.